everybody, this is Dr. Heather coming to you live from Ask Dr. Heather. If you guys are brand new to Ask Dr. Heather, my name is Dr. Heather Carden. I've been practicing for over 20 years, a very functional style of medicine. So as you can imagine, we talk a lot about poop because we talk about food as a foundation. If you guys want to know more or stay tuned in to some of my lives, simply click on the link above and join, and we'll let you know when things are happening. So today, what is your poop telling you? We know that as a good physician, we ought to talk about what's happening in your mouth and what's happening in the toilet. So no more appropriate place. I didn't want to take you guys to my bathroom, but be here right in my kitchen. So let's just start talking about normal digestion. There are so many things that go on with normal digestion. I think we often take it for granted, and we think just whatever we throw in our mouth is going to come back out. So it does, right? And how it comes back out tells us a lot of the story of what's happening between our mouth and the toilet. So let's just do a quick 101 review of normal digestion. No matter what the food is, it starts in our mouth. So we start chewing our food. We're actually supposed to chew our food 50 times. So I want to challenge you guys. How many times do you think you're chewing your bites of food? 15 times, 10 times? Well, I'm going to tell you the average American chews their food about 10 to 12 bites and then swallows it. For total mastication, because that's what it's called, and we're chewing and chewing and chewing. And I'll see people chew gum for an hour, but then they only chew their food like 3 or 4 bites and swallow it. So when we're chewing our food, what that does is tell our stomach, hey, food's coming, get ready, get ready. So if we don't chew our food long enough, then our stomach obviously might not be ready, and then it might come back up. Have you ever thought of GERD or reflux just because it's our body saying, hey, try that one more time, chew it one more time? We have a lot of glands in our mouth that signal the rest of our stomach and our brain to get ready for digestion. So once we chew our food, hopefully 50 times, which again, chew something tomorrow and let me know how many bites that you take. Then what happens is it just goes down our esophagus, which is called the food tube. I'm going to use a diagram. So this is our mouth chewing our food. It just comes down the food tube. The first place it hits is our stomach. What our stomach is supposed to do is supposed to dump in a whole bunch of hydrochloric acid. Our stomach, get this guys, is supposed to be 1 to 1.2 on the pH. So what does that mean? Our stomach's supposed to be acid. Why is our stomach supposed to be acid? To kill critters. So if I sit here and touch something and I put my hand or mouth on it, it's to kill the dirt bugs and the other bugs that are not supposed to be normal in our digestive tract. Also, what happens is our spleen dumps in amylase and lipase, which are some enzymes that help us with digestion. So first place of digestion, mouth, chewing food 50 times. Then it goes down our esophagus, which is simply just a food tube. And then our body dumps in hydrochloric acid. It also dumps in B12. B12 is a super important part to happen in the stomach because it helps break up carbohydrates. It helps with carbohydrate and protein metabolism. And then again, if there's some carbohydrates in there, your spleen dumps in a couple things called amylase and lipase. So then it travels over to the gallbladder. So hopefully you all still have your gallbladder. A lot of us don't. That's because we've abused it. So your gallbladder simply says, hey, there's a little bit of fat. I'm going to throw some salt in there to help break it up. And then what happens next is our liver. Our liver really just sifts and sorts food. It identifies it and says friend or foe, fat, protein, carbohydrate. Liver does a whole bunch of stuff. So always be kind to your liver. And I'll give you some great tips on how to have a healthy liver. Things like eating beets and okra are really, really good for your liver, actually, which I know a lot of people don't like to eat beets and things like that. So as we travel down the digestive tract, so we chewed our food, our stomach threw in some stuff, then our liver sifts and sorts it. And then once the liver's done sifting and sorting it, then the small intestine absorbs it. So our body is its own pharmacy. So hopefully you chewed your food properly. Hopefully you have enough acid and you're not taking one of those proton pump inhibitors that says stop the acid. So hopefully you're dumping acid into your stomach. You're dumping some B12. Your spleen and pancreas are dumping in some amylase and lipase, and hopefully not too much because you didn't eat too many carbohydrates. Then if you need a little fat broken up, your gallbladder salts, throw some stuff in there. And then the liver's pretty happy. All it has to do, again, is just sift and sort it out there. And then our small intestine absorbs it. But if something wasn't right in any of those places, we know that we can get ulcers in our stomach from stress. So maybe you're super stressed out when you're eating, or maybe you didn't sleep very good and your cortisol level's off, or maybe you are taking some of those prescription pills or over-the-counter pills that actually stop having our stomach break down the food, or maybe we have an MTHFR deficiency and we don't have enough B12, or we've overused it because we've eaten way too many carbohydrates our whole life because that's what we were told to do. the small intestine absorbs it. So the small intestine absorbs proteins and all those macronutrients, and it helps make different things like different hormones. The liver also makes a whole bunch of hormones because cholesterol breaks down into all of our sex hormones like DHEA, which is our anti-aging hormone, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, pregnenolone, all that stuff done in the liver. Small intestine absorbs, and the large intestine, its major job is to make antibodies and get ready for evacuation. That's what the large intestine does. And then again, we're using science words today, people. Our rectum's major job is to reabsorb water. So if you're looking in the toilet, because we're going to start from the bottom up, and you're seeing something that doesn't look like a log like everyone talks about, maybe it's all mushy, that would be diarrhea. That would mean your body's saying you're putting something in there that it definitely doesn't want in there, so it's pushing it out really quickly. Or maybe it comes out in little clumps and balls. That says that your body's dehydrated. The large intestine's job is to reabsorb water. So if you're dehydrated, you're not going to have a nice stool. You're going to have little clumps and things like that. Maybe you're seeing some black tarry stuff, which could be old blood from somewhere in the colon, or maybe you're seeing some bright red blood. That can happen. It doesn't always mean that you have any type of cancer, but it means that there's stress inside our colon. So we hear that word diverticulitis. We hear that word leaky gut all the time. So what, when we define that, defines leaky gut, we'll start there. It's anything from gas and bloating to constipation to diarrhea to IBS, because we don't know what else to call it. I call it malabsorption and maldigestion, because again, when we're putting real food in our mouth, our body is meant to break it down, and we should have nice solid bowel movements 1 to 2 a day is normal. I talk to people all the time like, well, I'm normal. Normal for me is like once a week. So if you're not evacuating every day, we're going to take a second here and we're going to talk about when we're not evacuating. So if we are not evacuating every day, our body is a 98-degree oven. So if that food is sitting in your colon and it is not getting broken down, you have a really high likelihood of developing a parasitic infection called Candida albicans. I'll put it down below, but you guys can check it out, and I actually have a very simple test for you. So Candida is normally found, it's a normal part of our gut bug, just like strep and E. coli. Those are normally found in our gut in a very small quantity, but they're all there for many reasons. We have about 500,000 different gut bugs. So let's talk about Candida, because I got a whole bunch of questions about Candida. I did do an extended talk on Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, so we're just going to touch on that a little bit. But everyone says gut inflammation, gut inflammation. So why is my gut inflamed? Why are things not coming out? Why does it hurt when I eat? Your body's telling you what you're putting in there isn't really working. So even if you're putting like organic broccoli in there and you're having pain or bowel issues, it could be that you're not chewing your food 50 times, or maybe you don't have enough hydrochloric acid because of a yeast infection or Epstein-Barr or something like that. That's all very likelihood. So when you don't evacuate every day and that food sits in there at 98 degrees for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more days, what happens is yeast grows just like bread in the oven. And once we get a yeast infection, everyone thinks this is a vaginal infection or athlete's or jock itch or athlete's toe. That absolutely can be true. But we start seeing that our bowels aren't evacuating, we can get things like Candida will cause tons of fatigue because the body's so tired of having that food in there. And then again, if the bowels aren't evacuating, sometimes those symptoms dump over into your skin and you get psoriasis, you get white patches. All that stuff is yeast. So we have to figure out how we get those bowels moving. A really simple test, if you think you potentially could have yeast, and you guys can go Google all the symptoms for Candida and yeast, it will be from hormone imbalance to fatigue to malaise to muscle soreness, muscle stiffness, itchy eyes, chronic cough, chronic nose drip, chronic itchy eyes, toenail fungus. All those type of things can be Candida infection. Here's a simple test. You can do it either by a stool test, which can be a few $100s. You can have a blood test, which is a few $100s. But first of all, you can just start at home. So you simply just get a glass and you put a glass by your bed tonight before you go to bed, just normal tap water, and let it sit there. And then in the morning, you simply spit in there, and you can find this video all over YouTube. And what happens is if you get these little stringly things, that's going to tell you that you have gut yeast, and how fast those strings form tell you how rampant it is in your body. So maybe you're not having current symptoms now, not the itchy throat, but you could definitely have a systemic Candida infection. And again, if you think that's you, drop your name down below and I'll send you some more information, a specific YouTube video, or in the link up above, say, I want more information on ulcerative colitis or Candida or gut issue. But we are having a ton of people with gut issues. Number one, we're eating a diet super high in carbohydrates. Sugar feeds yeast all day long. So if you're the person who eats a really lovely dinner, you have chicken and broccoli and a salad, and then all of a sudden you're like, where's the sugar? Where's the dessert? Where is that coming? I just need a piece of fruit. That's the candida saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. We know that we can get a candida infection from taking antibiotics. So oftentimes it can be harboring in your body for decades because maybe you went on antibiotics for acne in high school. Or maybe you had chronic ear infections, which actually was probably a food allergy when you're in elementary school. It could still be harboring there today. Or perhaps you had mono or Epstein-Barr in high school or college. That makes a symbiotic, which means they like each other, they want to be friends, can make a very big symbiotic relationship between candida and between Epstein-Barr or mono or any of the herpes simplexes. So all you need to do tomorrow morning is have a glass sitting there. So put it by your bed tonight and spit in there. If the stringulars happen, and the faster they happen is the higher amount of yeast that happens in your body. If you just get fuzzy, cloudy stuff like you spit and it's just foamy, then you don't have any yeast in that spit. But again, the most definitive thing is actually to get your blood or have your stool sample taken, and take 3 or 4 stool samples because we have a lot of feet in our colon there. So we're going to go right back up to the top. So let's talk about your mouth, because a lot of people probably are not chewing their food 50 times. And a lot of people are probably having some type of either missing teeth, or they had some type of dental work done in there, or they had braces sometime in their life and they have metal and they have amalgam and maybe they're getting that stuff taken out. I see gold crowns, silver crowns. All that stuff is leaching into your body. And so what you can simply do is you can look at your tongue. If your tongue is white and pasty, if it has little scallops, if it has a big fissure down the middle, that is the first place of digestion. That's a great thing to say that I probably have something going out of balance. Maybe you have bad breath all the time, and not keto breath we're talking just bad breath all the time. Your loved ones are telling you, honey, have a minute. Honey, you need to do something. Or maybe it's happening at the other end where people are like, whoa, they cleared the room. We know who was in the bathroom. That's happened. I'm a mom of 4 boys, so this stuff really happens. I have a clinic with 2 bathrooms. We know what happens in there. So when you're eating food, you shouldn't have a bad odor coming out of your mouth, and you shouldn't have stuff coming underneath the table that is a bad odor. You should be burning clean all the time, and at least once or twice a day. So if you're having symptoms and your body's telling you, thanks for the thumbs and the hearts, that you're having bad breath, or you're having symptoms like you eat something and then your nose gets runny or itchy, that could potentially be a food allergy, and not one where you have to have an EpiPen. You would have already known that, where your lips swelled up from a peanut or a piece of shrimp or something like that. But what happens is that we have a gaminoglobulin, IgG, that comes in about 72 hours after we eat something. So the gas, the bloating, the fatigue. I know a lot of you participated in the last 60-hour reboot, and then when you went to put food in your body, whether it was dairy or an egg or a cracker, you're like, oh my gosh, I got this wave of fatigue after I ate. So if you're getting fatigue after you eat, that could be a symptom of having a food allergy, or it can also be yeast, because sugar feeds yeast. So living on a diet high in carbohydrates, knowing that we have way overused antibiotics. Even the World Health Organization is saying we way overuse those in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s, which set us up for a lot of gut inflammation, because we're supposed to have gut bugs and gut bacteria in there. But when we're taking antibiotics, it strips it all out, and then we're not refeeding with the proper things, earthy greens, a little bit of fermented stuff. We never refilled with that. And so now we have a whole system of gut out of balance. So I want you to look at your toilet tomorrow or tonight and see what's happening. It should be brown, it should be semi-soft, and it should be in the shape of your colon. And yes, it can be 1 or 2 pieces, but it shouldn't be little balls like a rabbit. It shouldn't be like, I'm a farm girl, shouldn't look like a cow, shouldn't look like a pig poop, and should more look like a dog poop if you have a dog and you're picking that up. It should be brown. It shouldn't have any other colors or flecks in there, but maybe if you ate some corn, you could see that, because that doesn't get broken down. But for normal digestion, you shouldn't have bad breath. You shouldn't have smelly toots. It's okay to toot all day long. That means your gut's working. And then again, you shouldn't have that gas and bloating happening. If you are, then you potentially have some type of infection in your gut. If you have stinky feet, itchy feet, that could also be parasites. If you have animals sleeping with you, you live on a farm, maybe you work in a vet clinic, or you dig in the dirt, do things like that, that could also set you up for parasites, which actually are super active at night, which would make you have a little crampiness. Again, diarrhea with that will come along as well. So there are a lot of things, and we're talking about how do we help IBS? How do we help leaky gut? How do we help those things? Number 1, we start with 3 separate things. Number 1, food elimination. So either we do a food allergy testing, IgG, IgA, to say, what is my body not breaking down? If you're putting something in, even say it's organic broccoli, but you have an allergy to it, it's going to come back up because your body's saying, I don't want it in there. Same thing happens when you have a food poisoning, right? It comes back up or it goes back out. When that's happening on a daily basis, either you're having regurgitation just after eating a little bit, not like you've had food poisoning, but the food's coming back up, or it's getting stuck and not not coming out, or it's coming out way too quickly, those are all signs that you potentially have some type of systemic gut infection or you have a food allergy. So we like to do food allergy panels. If we suspect parasites, then we're going to do a poop test where we check 3 random samples of your poop and you send it into a lab and it tells us what bacteria you're missing, what you may be missing, or what you may be needing. But again, when we look at this, there's a lot of factors involved with that. There are more nerves in your gut than your spinal cord. So if you're a person who's eating 12 to 14 hours a day, and this is why I love intermittent fasting, you're making your gut and nervous system work all day long. It doesn't have a restful period to actually fight the bugs or the critters that are in there to get your immune system up and running. So if you're a person that says, yep, I got bad breath, I got stuff coming out, then you need to see what's happening in there. And then secondly, we're going to talk about just normal blood panels. So if you find yourself, and I haven't had dairy in years, I've been off dairy for a very long time, it's an allergy of mine, and I have a normal calcium level. But if your doctor's saying, you know what, you have an abnormal calcium level, or your magnesium is low, or your iron's low, or your potassium low, or your vitamin D is low, those are hard minerals. That's a stomach issue. I'm giving you guys some good tips here today. We talked about our stomach. Remember, we chew it 50 times. Our stomach dumps in betaine hydrochloric acid. We do a simple betaine hydrochloric acid challenge because your stomach's supposed to have acid. If you're having to take in acids, you're putting something in there your body doesn't want, or your body's not equipped with enough B12 and enough betaine hydrochloride to actually break down the food. I like to explain betaine like when you're using CLR in your shower, that calcium is a super hard mineral to break out. So to get calcium out of the spinach, get calcium out of the almonds, get calcium out of the walnuts, the salmon, you have to have hydrochloric acid and you have to have B12 to actually help break that down so you can extract that. So if you're finding yourself constantly low in minerals, even though you're supplementing, your stomach needs to have a deeper dive look and do a betaine hydrochloric acid challenge. If you're chronically constipated, we do a vitamin C lavage challenge. What that means is you simply take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a powdered form, 1,000 milligrams every hour until you get to bowel tolerance, which is diarrhea. That tells you how deficient you could be in vitamin C. And I'll put all this stuff on my Ask Dr. Heather blog for information-wise. And then the other question I got is, what probiotic do I take? And then when do I take it? So a probiotic actually works after you've digested your food. So it doesn't work in the stomach, it doesn't work in the liver, it helps in the small intestine. I just grabbed 3 from my office that are all different ones. So this is a prosymbiotic, which is mostly Saccharomyces. This is actually an X-spore. So this has a very specific blend for people who have candida. It has caprylic acid and garlic bulb, has a little golden seal in there, and has some Bifidus bacterial bifidus. If you guys can say that 3 times fast, I'll let you do that. So when you're looking at that, and this is one from Ortho, it has a lot of lactobacillus. Oftentimes what happens is people have a systemic yeast infection or a parasite, and they just go grab something. And actually, if you're doing a lot of lactobacillus and you have a candida infection, it will actually feed the candida, and you won't feel better after taking that. So that's why we get pretty particular when we're talking about probiotics and digestive enzymes. And where is the mishap happening? Is it happening in the mouth? Most of us probably because we're not chewing. Is it happening in the stomach because you don't have enough acid, or you don't have enough B12 because you ran out of eating all those carbohydrates for your entire life, you didn't know better? And then again, if you're on a pattern and you're saying, well, my protein low, is my calcium low? Well, that's an absorption problem. That happens in the small intestine. Then we look at the large intestine. Then again, what it does is get ready for evacuation. It tells us what's happening in there. So if you have flaky poop, it generally means you don't have enough fiber in there. If you have clay poop, so it's kind of a gray color or a green color, that means that your gallbladder and liver are not working together, which they should, to help turn it brown. It's called bilirubin, to help turn that brown to get through there. Or maybe you have a lab result that your bun is off, BUN. That tells us that you're probably overeating protein, or you're eating enough to dehydrate the body at that cellular level. So when people say, well, I have irritable bowel, I have IBS, I have gas and bloating, usually it starts with something like, I did have bad breath back in college. Well, then I started to have some bowel issues. And now 4 or 5 years later, I'm having more significant bowel issues. So what I would suggest is be your own detective. So keep a food diary, so journal your journey, what you do for the next 2 weeks, and write down what your poop looks like, and write down if you're having excess gas or maybe excess bloating. And that would be, you know what, my pants fit this morning, and then I had lunch, I had an egg salad, now all of a sudden my pants don't fit. That's going to let us know that something that you ate is not being broken down and kind of getting stuck in there. So as you start to be your own detective and talk about your poop and your breath and your bloating, you're going to find some really important things out about yourself. So we always recommend that you get with a physician that knows knows what they're talking about and knows how to analyze that. Oftentimes, if you just go to a GI guy, they're just going to give you, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to keep it. They're not going to actually find what the root cause is. I'll say it right there. Oftentimes the root cause is not discovered. Do you have a systemic yeast imbalance? So it's a pretty good chance if you say, I fight yeast all the time, I have that icky breath, I have symptoms of yeast, whether it's vaginitis or jock itch or toenail fungus or itchy ears, itchy throat, you're always doing that. Or if you say, oh, I know I'm allergic to the mold, because that's super common in Kansas. Well, if you're allergic to the mold and you're eating things like vinegar and kombucha and sauerkraut and alcohol and beer and wine, all things that are fermented, you're just feeding that yeast. That's why it wants you to keep feeding it and feeding it. So that's a good sign that you potentially could have candida. Again, I do, if that's you, I'll post a YouTube video down below. Do a little bit of test and see what's happening. So take any piece of paper and you can start journaling your journey. Write down what you eat, write down the time that you eat, and then how you feel. Again, if you get that wave of fatigue after you ate, you either overate because it was way too much for your nervous system, or there's an allergy in there and that's a histamine response. And simple detective work is you can try it over-the-counter antihistamine. If that helps you, then you have a food allergy and need to get that checked out. If you're having any other colors of stools like gray, clay, black, red, anything other than brown, you need to get a stool analysis done. So there are ways. We know that our colon can heal. We know that people can, cut out inches of their colon and you can still have normal digestion. So if you're a person who has all your organs in there, or maybe you are missing your gallbladder, you can still have normal digestion, but you just have to be very conscious of what you're putting in there. Our body was meant to digest whole, real food. So lots of greens, right? And lots of nuts and seeds and animals. It wasn't meant to digest processed food, because what happened is that in the caveman day, all those babies were born in ketosis. In the beginning of the biblical days, all those babies were born in ketosis. All of your ancestors were born in ketosis. Today, all the babies are born in ketosis, which is our native fuel source. However, we have actually upgraded, right? I've got a refrigerator over there. I have a pantry. I have a freezer out in the garage full of food and meat. They didn't have that back in the biblical times or the caveman times, depending on their way. Our ancestors didn't have that. So our bodies never evolved to eating 24/7 or eating, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is like 14 hours a day. It over bombards the body. So if you have a history of gallstones, that's going to tell me that you need some more stomach acid to break down the food. It's not the gallbladder's fault. It's actually the stomach's fault that's happening that. So how we eradicate yeast, Lori, and we've been treating this for 20 years. We do it with a ketogenic diet. We take out all dairy, everything that is fermented. So that would be cheese, alcohol, wine, vinegars, which is hard to do with dressings. But I had to do this for 1 year after my fourth child was born. I had all my kids natural, but I had a systemic yeast infection. Just happens from hormones. So if you've been on birth control, even HRT, men taking testosterone, men with high estrogen levels, you can still get yeast as well from the estrogen levels. So if you're missing a gallbladder, there are amazing supplements you can take, like okra pepsin. I actually brought just a lipase. This is a fat digester. So if you're missing your gallbladder, this is amazing for fat digestion. Or things like okra pepsin or AF beta food, which is beet leaf. So just combining those things in your diet, if you're going to have a salad, have some okra, have some beet leaves in there instead of just a beet bulb. It's super great for digestion. Dandelion root, again, is great for digestion. But I do want you to start to be your own detective, and don't just accept like my normal is going to the bathroom like 5 times a day, or my normal is to have mushy bowels, because when you're seeing that in the toilet, there's already 60% damage happening in our gut. So once you get the signs of celiac, where you're having bloody stools, or ulcerative colitis where you're having bloody stools, or you're having Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disease. Once that happens, you have 60% damage to their epithelial. So we have to find out, what is your body not like? So what do we have to stop putting in there so it stops attacking it? And then what do we need to do to repair it? There are certain amino acids like glutamine that are very specific to the gut that you can actually aid with. So again, there's lots of things that we do in our office, but I did want to address this because my box is full about gut stuff. Like, what does it mean if my poop is this? What does it mean if my poop is that? How come my breath always smells bad, even after I brush my teeth? What's the white fuzzy stuff on your tongue? So hopefully I helped you answer some questions about what's happening in your body. You can also look up the Bristol stool chart, and I'll probably post that down below, because it'll give you 1 through 6 that if it's lumpy, if it's bumpy, if it's flaky, if it's mushy, it'll tell you exactly what's happening, if that's what your poo looks like. We always called it poop, but people call it poo these days. But I want you to be a detective. Mouth the toilet. What's happening? Because we know that the number one cause or number one pill sold today is Prilosec. When you're taking an acid inhibitor, remember our stomach's supposed to be very acidic. It's supposed to be about a 1 to 2 pH. Water is 8. Stomach is supposed to be super acidic. So when you eat things like an apple that maybe has pesticide on it, or you eat meat that's not maybe all the way cooked and still has some live critters in there, your stomach can ward off and kill all that stuff. The same reason that you heat things in the dryer to kill critters, the same reason that you heat or boil water to kill critters, the acid is meant to kill the critters in the food of things that you don't want. But when we stop the stomach from pumping out acid with a proton pump inhibitor, then what happens is we don't have an acidic stomach anymore. Stuff isn't getting broken down, like calcium's not getting pulled out of the salmon or the almonds, and magnesium's not coming out of the broccoli, and you're not getting the potassium out of the avocado. The minerals aren't happening, so then you find yourself supplementing down the road. So as you start to be your detective, as you're saying, you know what, I'm pretty good up on top, I'm chewing my food, I don't really get that gut and bloating, but boy, there's stuff happening down there. Or every time I go to the doctor, he tells me I'm a little bit anemic, I need a little bit of B12, my calcium's a little bit low, my magnesium's a little bit low. That's where you say that is a stomach issue. We've actually got to eat the foods rich in those minerals, and then we have to get the stomach performing. So again, we do a betaine challenge acid test for our patients to let us know what's happening. It's not an expensive test, but some people will get to 20 tablets. That tells me they're pretty low with acid in their stomach, either because they've had Epstein-Barr or they've had a chronic infection like Lyme disease or Babesia or Candida. That robs your body of all the acid. It's just like what happens in a type 2 diabetic. They run out of insulin or hyper-respond to it. That's what happens when you also eat too many carbohydrates. You run out of acid in your stomach, and that's why we're having so much B12 issues and so much talk going on. Then I'm just going to close this out with the engine of our body. So this is our ignition. So our thyroid turns our body on, so we feed it fuel. We put it right in our mouth, so it starts right up here. Then this whole digestive thing happens. And normally that should happen within about 2 hours. It totally takes 4 hours for all that to be digested. So I generally challenge everyone to have their last meal 4 hours before they want to go to sleep. So if you're trying to go to sleep at 10, your last meal should be at 6. That way you have total digestion has happened, your nervous system gets to calm down, and when you can shorten that eating window, it takes all the stress off of the gut. And when you can identify what the gut doesn't like, then you can also identify, what your body does or doesn't like. Yes, you can have testing done if you can't figure it out by yourself. Find a functional doctor in your area. A stool analysis is always great to do. It will tell you exactly what probiotic is out. What I don't like is people just guessing because they heard that or they heard it from me like, well, I don't know what to do. Get with a healthcare practitioner in your area. I'm not here to treat or diagnose. I do want to bring some clarity when we're having all these letters like UC and Crohn's and IBS and leaky gut and all those other numbers. I have a whole bunch here. When we're having those letters, all it means is we have inflammation in our gut. We know carbohydrates feed inflammation. So the first thing to do is get rid of the carbohydrates and then check and see what's happening in your toilet and in your mouth. And you're going to really find a lot of answers for yourself. So I'm super excited for you guys all to report into me. I want you to report how many times on the average you chew your food tonight or tomorrow. You might be surprised you're probably not chewing it 50 times, but you'll chew gum for 45 minutes. And then you don't have to send me pictures of the toilet. Please don't do that. I've had people do it before. But start being your own detective. I will actually put the Bristol stool sample analysis at the bottom of this trade. But I do want to thank you guys for all of your questions. Thank you for taking the poll and saying, yes, we want to hear about gut inflammation. My last picture I have here today is once we eat food, this is how we get energy to our body. All this stuff is happening with carbohydrates and proteins and ketones and vitamin B and vitamin C. And so this is what's called really what happens, how our body gets energy. Because we eat food, our body breaks it down and we get energy. Our body is its own pharmacy when you give it the right food to break it down. But if you have an infection or you have an imbalance or you're low in B12, which breaks down carbohydrates and proteins, or you're low in hydrochloric acid, stuff's not going to turn out right in the toilet, and then you're not going to feel very good. And then when the gut gets super inflamed or it just can't take it anymore, it starts dumping it over into your skin. So then you get spots and you get skin tags and you get wrinkles, you get polyps on the inside, you get hemorrhoids, all that stuff start to happen. That's your body screaming for help, like, hey, help me, help me. Don't just put that cream on there and cover it up. Don't just put a sleeve on and cover it up. Help me, what do I need to do? And there are so many amazing natural remedies that you can do to help your body actually facilitate that. So number one, cut out all the sugar. Number 2, anything artificial dye, artificial sweetener, artificial flavorings, cut all that stuff out. Pick up a rotisserie chicken, make a meatloaf, have some mashed cauliflower, have some green beans with some almonds on it. Just keep it super simple and cut out the top 10 allergens, which are peanuts, eggs, shellfish, soy, dairy, mushrooms, gluten. Those are the top allergens. So it's free to do that. It might not be as easy, but there's lots of great recipes on my website, Ask Dr. Heather, which is free. Please go over there and download the guide. I made a brand new guide for you guys, which helps you kickstart your day in the right way. And then I want you to after you download that guide, go over to categories. And I have about 1,000 recipes. They are 100% all gluten-free. They are 90% dairy-free because I just substitute coconut milk or almond milk, hemp milk, whatever you need. But simply just start being your detective. A journal is the best way for you to do that. So super excited to be here tonight to talk about poop and what's happening from your mouth to your toilet. And then let me know what we need to chat about next week. And I do it simply based on all the questions that you have there. So this is Dr. Heather from Ask Dr. Heather saying have an amazing week. I cannot wait to be with you next week for our next Health Flicks. Get it? Netflix, Health Flicks. I'm just trying to be clever and Ask Dr. Heather. So keep sending your questions, post them here. That's what leads me to do some more research and help you understand better what's happening to your body on a daily basis and help you take some action to achieve your optimal health. So as I said, I'll put down the stool. I'll put it in new post. I'm doing that. The Bristol stool analysis we will put down. I'll also put down the Candida test, which is just a quick test you can do in the morning. I'll put down a little bit more information about hydrochloric acid, but go back and look at that picture and think, you know what? This is exactly where this is happening. This is where I need help. And how do you do that? You see a functional physician that gets to the root cause of the problem, just doesn't give you a little Band-Aid to cover up the boo-boo, but actually finds out what's happening. And then again, the amazing thing is your body can heal. Like if I want to give Heidi what do I want to give Heidi? I could give Heidi my kidney. That would work. Or maybe Jenny breaks her leg. It should heal. And maybe Sarah cuts her arm with a knife cooking tonight. Her body's going to heal based on the resources that you have. Again, the small intestine absorbs all the nutrients. The liver helps sift and sort and makes those hormones. So if your hormones are off or your mineral balance is off, it's a pretty easy thing that you're either not eating the right foods or you're not digesting what you're eating. So again, there's a link up on top. Simply put whatever information you want to put in there, your name, your date, what topic you'd like to talk about. I'm trying to be a little bit more organized. And then again, pop over to AskDrHeather.net and download the guide to kickstart your day in the right way. Have a great day. I'll see you guys next Thursday.